Hello and welcome to this webinar created by the Presbyterian Church in Canada. My name is Emily Hill. I'm the Education Coordinator for Canadian Ministries, and I'm very happy today to welcome Joyce MacKichan Walker, a colleague from PCUSA, who's going to be talking to us about faith formation with older adults. I'm going to get Joyce to introduce herself and give you a bit more details about her background, but I just wanted to say a warm welcome to all of you who are tuning in for this, watching it later on a video, and also to Joyce. Welcome, Joyce, and we're so glad you're here.
Thanks, Emily. It's a delight to be with you. I'm a PCUSA ordained minister to the Ministry of Word and Sacrament, but I spent most of my professional life as a certified Christian educator with the PCUSA. I spent 30 years of that ministry as first the educator and then a pastor at the Nassau Presbyterian Church in Princeton, New Jersey, as the Minister of Education and also of Mission in my later years there. That was after graduating from the Presbyterian School of Christian Education in Richmond, Virginia, and after 10 years of working in much smaller churches than Nassau. I'm actually a Canadian from Nova Scotia who went to the United States for graduate school, married an American and stayed, but I cross the border frequently, and Canadians are near and dear to my heart. So I'm delighted to be with you today. I'm spending more of my time in older adult ministry, not professionally because I'm retired, but leading workshops and teaching a certification course in older adult ministry, teaching older adults for the Presbyterian Older Adult Ministry Network. So I'm looking forward to this presentation and being with you today. So let me begin. The age wave, we all know about it. There are so many more older adults in the world and in the church. So today, I hope to share with you some principles that might help you guide older adult ministry. I'd like to begin with this psalm as a prayer. Psalm 71 is my favorite psalm for working with older adults, and I think you'll see why as I offer this prayer. For you, O Lord, are my hope, my trust, O Lord, from my youth. Upon you I have leaned from my birth. Do not cast me off in the time of old age. Do not forsake me when my strength is spent. I will hope continually and will praise you yet more and more. O God, from my youth you have taught me, and I still proclaim your wondrous deeds. So even to old age and gray hairs, O God, do not forsake me, until I proclaim your might to all the generations to come. And here's a quote from David A. Davis, who was a pastor at Nassau Presbyterian Church in Princeton, New Jersey. On February 3rd, 2019, Dave preached a sermon using the text of Psalm 71. And towards the end of that sermon, he said this: I've long since grown weary of people lamenting that this or that congregation is full of so many older people, when what ought to be said is, wow, can you believe how many older people are in that church? Lifelong praise. So just imagine it. More and more older people in congregations who have been worshiping God for their whole life long. Imagine what they bring to this congregation. So I want this to be something that I say out loud every time I hear someone lamenting all the gray hair in today's churches, because I want us all be able to proclaim the lifelong praise that those people offer within congregations and towards God. So there are lots of definitions of older adult ministry. Some of them refer to mature adults between 55 and 75. Sometimes they say 50s and 60s. And sometimes the older adults category then is 75 and above. Sometimes people talk about decade spans and what the space of 10 years can provide in an older adult life. I remember back in 2008 at the Association of Presbyterian Church Educators doing a workshop on adult education formation for older adults. And I read that turning 60 was a good time to draft a 30-year plan. Imagine it. Many people, when they turn 60, still have 1/3 of their lives left to live. So in this limited time frame, I am choosing to focus on 10 big picture principles for ministry with older adults. But I'm thinking of older adults as 60 years old and older. As we prepare to begin, I'm wondering what your observations might be about older adults in the church of the early 21st century. So I'm going to give you a moment to think of 3 words or phrases that describe older adults in your congregation or ministry area. I suspect some of your words are new to such a list, while some are ones that have been used for years to describe older adults. I can imagine folks mentioning growing physical challenges, wisdom, experience, giftedness. Many live in retirement places. Many are lonely. Many love connection, want visits, and want to contribute. So now I invite you to think of 2 or 3 older adults you know very well. Maybe write their names down. I want you to keep them in mind as we consider some big picture principles for older adult ministry. I'm going to think of some mentors I've had in educational ministry, in faith formation, in working in churches. Some folks who, in their old age, quote unquote, have offered amazing ministry. So, principle 1. Older adults' understandings of the Christian faith will vary significantly. I'm not starting with information about faith development because now any of the scholars, of the researchers who have provided us information about faith development have been talking about categories that now we either have moved beyond, or even if they are still true for folks who have been engaged in faith, no longer help us better understand lots of older adults for whom talking about being an older adult no longer fits the categories. Now, when we talk about older adults, you can expect a great variety of beliefs about God, who God is, about who Jesus was and or is, because for some of them it's a was, about the purpose of the church, about how faith might affect one's life, about the purpose of prayer. Do we believe that prayer changes things? Do we believe prayer changes God? Do we believe that God answers prayer? About what death brings, because many older adults have very different ideas about what that might be, even if they are people of faith. And those are just some categories amongst many. Principle 2. Older adults come with a variety of religious, spiritual identities and corresponding needs. So this is one way of thinking about the older adults with whom we interact. And it comes directly from John Roberto. This list comes from 21st Century Adult Faith Formation, which you'll find in the resources. But he's been talking about these 4 categories of identities. He calls them scenarios for a long time, since a book in 2009 that he published called Faith Formation 2020, looking ahead to what faith formation might look like in 2020. So the first identity, these are the people who we will find around our church all the time, always in worship when they can be there, at every program when the church doors are open. These folks are religiously, spiritually committed and engaged in the faith community. These are the most committed folks who show up all the time and for whom faith is a primary place that they find meaning. Then we have the less religiously committed. These folks participate occasionally in the faith community, sometimes in, sometimes out, maybe more engaged in other aspects of their life than their faith life, but certainly keeping it either on the periphery or partially in what their life reflects at this stage of their life. However, these 2 descriptions of folks, these folks who are older adults in our congregations, are having lots of relationships with and being in connection with 2 other scenarios that Roberto describes. One of these represent people who have left established churches and religion. They no longer attend worship or programs, but they would still describe themselves as spiritual and spiritually committed. We sometimes hear these folks referred to as spiritual but not religious. But they are in and around the edges, and they are people in our communities. And then the last category are described as unaffiliated, uninvolved, and claim no religious identity. So these folks have made active choices not to be in faith communities and not to claim themselves as religious any longer. They might be atheists, they might refer to themselves as agnostic. They certainly do not find church community to be the place where they draw their primary connection. However, all of these folks are representative of identities that we will find in older adults. Principle 3, faith formation is concerned with all of one's life. You can't pull religion out of the rest of your identity. Your physical development, your mental development, your emotional development, your spiritual development are all attached together. They are all dimensions of our lives that are affected by our spiritual lives. So we need to think about older adults holistically. Every bit of who they are and what they bring to this is a part of what we need to address with faith formation. Principle 4, relationship and community are key to adult faith formation. I can't say this strongly enough or often enough. Relationship and community are absolutely the core of how faith formation works with everyone, but particularly with older adults who are looking for community in new ways in their later life. So older adults find community in their family, they find community in their close friends, in their neighborhood, whatever that might be, and however you might represent that. They certainly look for it in their church, where they often refer to church as their family. They look for it in intentional small groups that meet particular needs. And these are places where they know and expect to build deeper relationships that are going to make a difference in their life. And they find community in social gatherings, so intentional social gatherings that realize that they are a part of faith formation are one of the ways that reaching older adults is possible. Principle 5. Diversity of programming is required to provide the depth needed to engage the breadth of situations and circumstances of older adults. So this is the one size does not fit all category of older adults. These living situations, here are some examples. Some older adults still live in a single home. Some have moved into condos or apartments. Some live in adult housing communities. Some live in facilities that have a variety of levels of care. And lots of circumstances can be represented by any of those living situations. Some live with a partner. Some live with a friend by choice in their older years. Some are single. Some are driving. Some are not driving. So some have access to lots of things that others don't, based on that category. Some have family near and very engaged with them in their life. Some are folks who really focus on doing for others, so they are actively engaged in connecting in many different places in their lives. Some, on the other hand, feel isolated and alone and struggle with how to connect with people. And some of these people are even caring for a parent still, or for grandchildren. So you can see why a diversity of programming is required to provide the depth needed to engage a breadth of situations and circumstances. One thing, one program, one idea, one approach is not going to be able to deal with all of these situations and needs. So now I invite you to think about what you heard in any of these first 5 principles that you could immediately affirm from your own experience of older adults, maybe in those folks whose names you wrote down. But let's keep a minute of silence. We're thinking about connections. Okay, let's move on to principles 6 through 10. Principle 6. Older adults have a variety of preferred ways of learning, but will try new ways to engage. So we all know that folks learn in particular ways better than other ways. But I'm always impressed by what older adults will try, particularly if they are in a situation where other folks are doing different things. So some things to remember when you're working with older adults. Make choices available. That's not only important because of some particular kinds of limitations that older adults find they embody, but it's important because of the different ways in which we learn. And providing choices empowers people to know and to believe that they have some investment in what is happening. When you're planning, intentionally plan for accommodations for eyesight, for hearing, for mobility, for cognitive challenges, for social challenges, and for others unique to your participants that only you will know about, and because these are folks with whom you work. So I'm not suggesting that everything you do has to be intentionally accommodating of all of these, simply that some of the choices that you make available need to consider that you will have folks in a group of older adults who might represent any of these accommodations and the need for these accommodations. But I encourage you to try new things with older adults and to, in the choices you provide opportunities for folks to be creative, to use words, to use materials, art materials, to do the kinds of things you might not think they would be willing to do, that in their older lives, they might have a new willingness for and a new interest in. Principle 7. Many highly significant life transitions occur in the last third of life. This may be one of the most important things for us to pay attention to, because it provides us an entree into connecting with older adults at these significant times in their lives. These significant life transitions, which could be job loss, it could be retirement, there could be death of a spouse, there could be death of very close friends, there could be a loss of community and needing to move, there could be lots of physical life challenges. These are all key opportunities for fostering spiritual exploration, for using them to invite growth. Let's take a look at what's happening. What does this mean for what comes next? For empowering resilience. What do we learn in this situation? What have we learned from other situations of trying to cope? And developing coping strategies alongside folks who are experiencing some of these life transitions is an opportunity of older adult ministry. These transitions offer an opportunity to provide very particular special care individually, or also by recognizing particular times of life with a celebration that puts them in touch with other folks who are experiencing the same thing. And there are opportunities to connect to a small group with similar changes or needs. A small group for those who have a partner with Alzheimer's, for example. A small group for those who have particular illnesses. A small group for those who are experiencing memory loss. This is an opportunity, significant life transitions, to connect folks to small groups with similar changes or needs, who will then help to enrich their lives and help them through these particular stages. Principle 8. Multi-generational contacts for learning and relationships are highly valued by many older adults. I cannot tell you how many times folks say to me, isn't there a way for us to spend some time with children? We would really love to have an opportunity to have some conversations with the youth in this congregation. These contacts are beneficial to all ages and stages, not just to older adults. And they're wonderful opportunities for life storytelling, for having opportunities for all ages to tell a bit of their story and to make connections with others, to share experiences. Places and things from their past, places and things they might hope for. There are times to learn to be sensitive to others' needs, because by working with and talking with others, you get a new experience of what it is to be somebody with different needs and longings than your own. There are opportunities to learn to love and to care for others. There are opportunities to work together on a task, to work side by side on something that has meaning and is important. And there are definitely opportunities for experiencing joy and delight, and for adding to the stories one might tell of what their life has been like. Principle 9. Helping others is a deep desire of older adults. Older adulthood is a time when many people feel like they have nothing to contribute, or they have no place to contribute it. So one of the things that we can offer older adults are opportunities to help. I'm intentionally not referring to it as mission opportunities or as serving opportunities. They are those, and those are important, but sometimes we simply want an opportunity to help. So planning for opportunities to help, we need to again remember accessibility for many abilities. Again, having a variety of places where helping is needed and desired that can accommodate different kinds of needs. We have to remember that we are meeting needs for contribution and caring in the older adults, and that's an important aspect of helping. It's good if these opportunities create relationship with others that can be life-giving and that can continue on. So yes, there are opportunities to do one-time things, but what places might continuing relationships be built? It's important to consider finding situations where continuing a partnership is both possible and desirable, because places where helping in continuing partnerships offer the opportunity for a richness that is how deep one can go in creating these relationships with one another. And finding places where mutual benefits are optimal. We don't need to think about it as only one-way directions that older adults help and others receive. Finding situations where this is a mutual benefit to everyone are the optimal opportunities for helping opportunities to grow and to create relationships and to be fulfilling and life-giving for everybody involved. And Principle 10, older adults show increasing openness to the online digital world for faith formation. Now, I know we all know small churches, some people in churches who don't have technological abilities, or communities where access to the equipment isn't available, where getting a cell signal can be challenging. And that continues to be true and will continue to be true. And those situations will require that we provide other ways to minister to those older adults than this way. But this is one way where accessibility to these tools and to experience with them is growing exponentially, especially now in the time of COVID-19. Older adults are using these tools because they're the only way they can keep in touch with their children. And their children and their grandchildren are providing them with equipment and teaching them how to use it. And there are more and more places where they can get help with that. So there are many advantages to getting into the online digital world for faith formation. So let's focus on those and remember that we never leave behind the people who don't have access to these tools. But advantages of online digital world for faith formation, you can personalize exploration and learning. One person, one need. What can we find on the web that can address that one person's need? And the first example I think of is if you can have an online Bible where you can change the text size to anything you need, can be an incredible gift to an adult who is having some issues with their sight and now has the option of, yes, picking up that well-loved and worn Bible, but reading the words from a screen where they're large enough that they can read them. Offering a variety of entry points into learning is one advantage. There are so many things available now on the web. If you're interested in art, you can find art museums and tours. If you're interested in music, there is free music to be had in every single genre. If you're interested in writing, if you're interested in poets and poetry, there's a world of available material that again can help you personalize what an individual's needs and interests direct you and them toward. Connecting isolated individuals through common interests. This is a way to put together 2 or 3 people who can connect via social media, via a platform that you're able to provide them that's free, that they can use to connect and learn to connect with other individuals who might have no contact during any given day. Delivering content about every subject imaginable. There's not anything that someone can say they're interested in and with some help not find something about that that's interesting and engaging, from videos to TV shows to apps that will take you places and show you things that you're interested in. And another advantage is the possibility as an individual to be guided in physical exercise, where apps and sites will provide exercise for people in a variety of physical situations, where you will find spiritual practices that you can engage in one-on-one with your computer, with the app, with the practice, simply sitting in front of a computer and engaging. Worship and worship services now that are all over, that have been taped and you can find on websites. I heard somebody say the other day, I spend all day Sunday attending worship in so many different churches. And it was an incredible way to spend a Sabbath. This is also a fabulous way to train people for particular ministries. And once you have older adults who are up and running with equipment and some of these skills, you can use this medium to train them to work with others and to connect with others. So it's an area that has grown in usability so much in this last year, and that will only grow more and more. So once again, I wonder if you might think about what you heard in any of these last 5 principles that you could immediately affirm from your own experience of older adults. Take a minute to reflect on them. Now that we've talked about these 10 big picture principles, I'd like to provide 3 examples that address only 1 or 2 of any of these, and you probably will never find something that addresses all of those. The idea is to use them as guides to pick up 1 or 2 and think about how you might enrich ministry by thinking about those individual principles. So first of all, an example of variety within a face-to-face ministry. Face-to-face ministry sometimes is the one thing that a church might be able to do, but you can actually provide a lot of the variety that you would like to be able to make available in that one face-to-face ministry. That might be something that you do monthly for 9 months of the year. So I took this example from the Presbyterian Older Adult Ministry Network. The letters are POAMN, and you'll see it in the resources. POAMN 2019 Older Adult Ministries Planning Guide. And you will find the planning guides for a number of years on the POAMN website. I took this one out of the 2019 planning guide, and it is Westminster Buffalo's Passages program. So this is a church, Westminster Presbyterian Church in Buffalo, New York. And here are the aspects of this monthly program. Listen for the variety you'll find here. There's a healthy catered lunch. It's $5. They started with 30 minutes, and they found they needed more time to allow for intentional fellowship and interaction to happen in addition to the actual eating. And the pastoral care associate in this church intentionally is not responsible for this program, but intentionally comes every single time they meet and has lunch with them so that she can move around from table to table and interact with these older adults and get to know them better, so that she is prepared to be in relationship with them in some of their more troublesome times. They have a variety of presentations that address the mind, the body, and the spirit. Remember, we are one person. It's holistic. They educate, they might stimulate discussion, they might offer social and emotional benefits. They're open to older adults beyond the congregation. Anyone who comes can invite anyone else. Transportation is offered to particular places where it will be helpful so that folks have access. Programs create interaction with presenters, which include children, youth, and adults. And here are some sample programs that they've used. A children's choir from a local school, because this is a daytime program, and they can come to this church and provide that. What an amazing opportunity for both. Pertinent movies followed by discussion. Chair Tai Chi or chair yoga. A pastor coming and talking about advanced planning for funerals and providing a tool. Counselor talking about the difference between loneliness and depression, figuring out what am I feeling and how might the church help. A program on encountering death and grief. And obviously the opportunity then to talk amongst themselves about the death and grief that they have experienced and are experiencing. Transitions, older adults face. This is one of the 10 principles. And again, to mention some: retirement, changing locations, death of a spouse, divorce, health issues, cognitive changes in self and partner. These are all things that you might address in programs. And so here you have a program that meets once a month, but within it contains a great variety of opportunities to address needs and interests of older adults. Then an example of staying connected for faith formation with older adults, meaning faith formation this time in more in terms of the educational aspect. So my adult education committee, when I was working at Nassau, did a yearly Lenten devotional booklet that was written by members of the congregation. Every year, 46 people each wrote one day of devotion based on their choice of text from the daily lectionary texts. For the first few years, we made a printed booklet, regular and large print, and we soon discovered that the large print was in high demand and began making more of those. Then we added an email version, exact same text, but daily sent by email through constant contact. A couple of years later, it was also posted on the website. And even later, also posted on Facebook around 5 a.m. You can set that all up automatically. And now we have 4 different ways that folks in the congregation are receiving these devotions. 2 hugely important features to people. 1, knowing the names of the people who wrote them and having a short bio of their church connections. Imagine 46 people's names. You're bound to know some of them. You're bound to get to know some a little bit better, to recognize that name down the road when you meet somebody. And the other thing they loved about this was being able to email a note to the writer. So only in the print and the email versions was the email address of the writer provided to protect their privacy. It was not on any social media site and not on the website. But if they were using one of those versions and didn't have the email, they could send an email to the church and the church would forward it on to the writer. What a fabulous opportunity to say thank you, or to say, this is what your devotion meant to me, and this is why I connected with it. This particular year, as in this year, connection is so important that no one wanted to stop receiving these after Easter Sunday. So empowered by some folks on the Adult Education Committee at Nassau. They extended it through the 50 days of Eastertide to Pentecost. There's no written version now because we can't provide that, but it can be emailed and put on Facebook and sent out in any other versions, having friends pass them on. The texts were given out and people were invited to make submissions, and individually they're received and edited and posted daily, so that the all-important connection that has been kept when we cannot connect face-to-face has been extended. We don't need a time of COVID-19 to do these kinds of things, to keep older adults who might be more isolated connected together. And an example of connecting virtually through an online platform. So Lenten small groups had just begun using this format. Adult education on the Sunday morning in the forum class was a Bible study on stories from Luke around the theme, the shape of salvation. These were offered during the 6 Sundays of Lent. The sermon and worship was on the same topic. The teacher and the preacher met weekly to discuss the text so that folks who were coming to worship could attend the adult education class and then hear the sermon preached on the same text and worship. Once COVID-19 happened, all in-person groups were suspended. So that explains this time, but for any time, it also reminds us that we have opportunities to provide this kind of an experience. All the in-person groups obviously needed to be suspended. So all groups switched to Zoom with the support of education staff for those leaders who were leading those small groups. All adult ed sessions were offered online, recorded ahead by the leader and posted on the website so that everybody has access. Those were also postings actually were sent out on Facebook and by email so that everybody had a link. All worship was offered via YouTube clips organized in order of worship on the website, which most churches are doing right now, and the links are offered for all of those so that you actually could have the whole package, quote unquote, of the adult education class and worship. And what happened after Easter? In the same way as requests for the devotions were made, folks said, we want more of this. We cannot connect with our church. And for many older adults who were not coming to adult education at 9:15 because of early morning, which can be difficult because of the length of time, because of transportation issues, they said more. So quickly organized by staff and by committees using favored and seasoned small group leaders, including some staff, the same format has been created. And now there's a Bible study on the book of Acts that's being delivered to homes on the website, via social media, and via other mediums, because everyone has learned how, and because people are helping each other, and everybody wants connection. And yes, connection can definitely be created online. It's not the same as face-to-face, but it is possible. And sometimes it's the only thing you have. So as we end, let me offer some resources. There's a handout available with this webinar that has more information on these and some links to some additional ones, but primarily they focus on these 3 resources. One is a book called Elders Rising. There's both a book by the name, The Promise and Peril of Aging, but the author of this book, Roland Martinson, did a fabulous webinar that is completely full of statistics and very recent research with older adults in the last 2 years in congregations and in multi-faith congregations. So you will find in the resources a link to that webinar, which is available free, and also the book. The Seasons of Adult Faith Formation covers all of the adult stages, but there are very rich sections in here on mature adults and older adults, and just tons of resources, including places to find online enrichment for individual adults who are looking for particular things. Lifelong Faith can be found at lifelongfaith.com. This is a periodical that for a while was in paper versions. You could order them. A number of years of these were then all put online, and they're all free. And there are two particular ones that are for older adults. This is one of them, The Future of Adult Faith Formation. And there's a second one, a special issue on adult faith formation. The Future of Adult Faith Formation, Fall 2015. You'll find all of these in the resources, and I commend them to you. John Roberto and some of his colleagues have been doing some of the best work in older adult ministry, and a lot of their work is represented in the resources. I wish you God's blessing on your ministries with older adults, because lifelong faith formation can be empowered and enacted in so many different ways. Blessings on your ministries.
Thank you very much, Joyce. This is Emily Hill speaking again, and I just wanted to thank everybody who's watched this webinar. Special thank you to you, Joyce. I also wanted to mention that if you'd like to be in touch with Canadian Ministries, you can email me at canadianministries@presbyterian.ca. You can find that on the website. And I would be more than happy to forward any questions you might have to Joyce or any other people we know working in faith formation. We can get the answer for you. So if you're looking for more resources, you have questions, please feel free to email the Presbyterian Church in Canada. Even if you go online and submit a question through the communications form that's right there, they'll send it to me. So please be in touch and stay tuned, because we'll have more webinars coming up on older adult ministry that will also be posted on the website, or you can join us live. So just look up Presbyterian Church in Canada webinars to see what's coming up. So thank you again, Joyce. It was a pleasure to have you with us.
Delighted. Thank you. Bye-bye.